Will the sheriff please give us order?
Will all those here assembled for the 198th commencement of Amherst College please be in order?
I want to congratulate Andrew Kendall, our honorary marshal, who's a member of Amherst's class of '83 and father of Oliver Kendall, a graduating member of the class of 2019, and daughter Rebecca, class of 2022. Thank you also to Sheriff Robert Garvey, who comes out of retirement each year to be part of Amherst College's commencement ceremony. Thank you, Sheriff Garvey. Welcome to all of you on this beautiful day at this beautiful site. I want to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on this site in what is Nonotuck homeland in the Quinnipiac River Valley. It has always been a crossroads of multiple Native nations and a place of exchange. Will all parents, step-parents, guardians, grandparents, great-grandparents, siblings, spouses, aunts, uncles, friends, supporters, please rise as you are able. Yeah. On behalf of our graduates, we give thanks to those of you who have stood beside them and behind them for so many years to make this day possible, and the graduates may stand and thank your families and supporters. Will the faculty please rise as you are able? I ask everyone here to recognize the outstanding scholars and teachers of Amherst College. You can be seated. Please join me also in thanking the extraordinary staff of this college with whom I am proud to serve as a colleague and who have made this day possible. Thank you to our staff. And now for the presentation of senior prizes. We now honor members of the class of 2019 who have achieved particular distinction in their 4 years at Amherst. Please come forward when I read your name. The Obed Finch Slingerland Memorial Prize is awarded by the trustees of the college to a member of the senior class who has shown by determination and accomplishment the greatest appreciation of and desire for a college education. And this year's prize will be divided between two students, Hillary Bediaco and Ilorm Yavuja. Congratulations to both of you. The Woods Travis Prize is an annual gift in memory of Josiah B. Woods of Enfield, Massachusetts, and Charles B. Travis of the class of 1864. It's awarded for outstanding work in culture and faithfulness to duty as a scholar. And this year's prize winner is Jamie Tucker Foltz. It is now my pleasure to introduce the senior chosen by the class of 2019 to address you this morning. Helena Burgueño, please come forward.
I think it was about time for my dad to find out that I was going to be commencement speaker. Hi, Papa. I'm not going to look at you anymore, though, because I'm going to cry. Okay, thank you, President Martin. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Helena Burgueño. If you want, you can also call me Elena Burgueño, but I'll be honest, and I'm sorry, but I really don't love it when you call me Helena Burgueño. When I introduce myself, I am doing so in part to say hello for the very first time to all of the parents and friends and family that are here to celebrate with us today. But I'm also saying hello for the very first time to many of the members of my graduating class. Hi there. Class of 2019, I know for a fact that when my name got announced as senior speaker, there was a pretty decently sized chunk of you that had no clue who I was. But that's okay. That's actually the reason I decided to run for senior speaker in the first place, because I really wanted to talk about how much it blows my mind that in the whole history of the universe, there is this very, very limited number of people who can honestly say, I graduated from Amherst College in May of 2019, and yet some of us have never even seen each other's faces before. I love to think about the fact that for every single moment that I was somewhere on this campus, whether I was lugging film equipment to and from Fairweather, or going for long walks on the bike path, or half-heartedly lifting the 10-pound weights at the gym, for every single one of those moments, there were over 400 of you out there doing something completely different in a completely different place, unless it was quesadilla night in Val, in which case at least 350 of you were for some reason waiting in the traditional line at one time, in spite of the fact that you had unlimited access to tortillas, cheese, and a warm panini press. I've never understood that. But at the same time that each of us has experienced our own distinct version of Amherst, it feels like we should think of ourselves as a group. If you think of it, the class of 2019 has been through a lot together, because Amherst has been through a lot in the past 4 years. We were brand new at Amherst during Uprising. We saw the birth of the Mammoths and the death of the Socials. We saw the most enormous mound of dirt I've ever seen in my life transform into a new science center. We developed the perfect breakfast smoothie recipe, only to have our blenders taken away. But you know what? I think that last one was for the best. Let's be honest. Do you remember those people who overdid it with the frozen mango and then ended up carrying around 8 cups of their own custom smoothie on a tray? But you see, that's what I'm talking about when I say that we have history as a class, because that memory from our first year, that's a vintage Amherst moment now. So in many ways, this is not the same school that we applied to. And I can't speak for all of you, but for me, it's been hard to be in a place that is constantly changing when I myself have been going through a new identity crisis on a daily basis. So I don't want to romanticize my time at Amherst, because this was not easy. And not easy means something different for each of us, but I think this is something that most of us can agree on. And here's a test, and I need your help with this, please. Please raise your hand if you ever felt personally victimized by sophomore year. Yeah. See, I may not necessarily know you, but let me tell you, I feel you. Sometimes I think back to this one particular day during my sophomore year when I was so completely overwhelmed by everything that I just turned off all the lights in my room and ate an entire box of graham crackers in the dark. And when I think of that day, I genuinely cannot believe that I made it to this moment right here, because when you're eating your feelings with graham crackers, that is a major low. But acknowledging hardship doesn't devalue the entire experience of being here. If anything, it makes today feel like more of a celebration, because for one reason or another, we made it through. In spite of the fact that there were actual minutes and hours that eventually turned into days in which I was perhaps genuinely unhappy here, I can now look back and say, I had a kind of miserable sophomore year. And having that perspective, knowing that even in the most incredibly trying times, I will someday be able to reduce my whole experience down to a sentence if I need to. That's how I survive. It doesn't erase the hardship or the very real feelings that are attached to it. It just makes everything feel so much more manageable. Each of us, for example, can sum up the past 4 or so years into 4 words. I went to Amherst. And maybe for some of us, that's all we're going to want to say about this place after we leave here. But for me, that sentence feels notably incomplete. It lacks all of the details that made being here so significant. Because no matter what your relationship to Amherst College is like, your experience here was almost certainly that, significant. I went to Amherst. I wonder what lays beneath the surface of that sentence for each of you. We may have our own individual stories about Amherst, but I have a feeling there are some common themes. An education, one that allowed you space to grow, encouraged you to question what you perceived as fact, and sometimes made you choose between sleeping, taking a shower, and completing the Moodle post for your 9 a.m. class on time. A place, this little campus, the colors of the Holyoke Range in October, the thrilling return of the Adirondack chairs, the instant the temperature goes above 60 degrees, and finally, and perhaps most importantly, people. The faculty and staff who reminded you that on top of being a student, you are also a human being. The small, subtle acts of friendship that carried you through your graham cracker days. The gallery of faces that belong to people who share your space, but maybe not your community. The specific details, the who's and the whens and the wheres, those are different for each of us, but we all have a transcript of classes that changed our way of thinking, a map of places that we occupied, and a list, like the credits at the end of a film, of all of the people who made this day possible. So maybe we've all just been writing variations on the same basic story this whole time. I graduated from Amherst. I know that this school has forced us all to get into the habit of adapting quickly to change, but leaving Amherst is like a big change, so I think it feels important to me that we recognize that. So in the tidal wave of family photographs and catered sandwiches and moving boxes that is about to hit each of us the moment this ceremony is over, I hope that each of you allows yourself a moment to feel as though you're in limbo. You don't have to have everything figured out today, and you definitely don't have to know how you feel about leaving this place. As someone who has had to have at least a few thoughts figured out in order to give a coherent, though perhaps overly philosophical, commencement speech, let me tell you it's harder than you might expect. How, for example, do you describe how excited you are for what is to come when you're painfully aware of all that you're leaving behind? Or how does one convey genuine gratitude towards this college for the unique and life-changing opportunities that it has provided while remaining honest about Amherst's flaws and failures as an institution? How do you describe the sensation of feeling multiple distinct emotions wholeheartedly, but at the same time? This goes beyond bittersweet, so we all need to give ourselves time. It's okay to take more than a minute to adapt to this particular change, although, for the record, you do have to be cleared out of your dorm rooms by 5 p.m. tonight, so maybe do some thinking while you're packing. For me, when I think about graduating with all of you, I'm thinking about this moment in history that we all just happened to have shared by virtue of being in this very particular place at the same time. I'm thinking about the fact that before stepping onto this campus for the first time, I didn't know a single one of you existed. And now I look in front of me and I see friends and a whole lot of strangers. And also that one guy that I always run into on A-level Frost. You may or may not know who you are, but I certainly do. I'm thinking about all of the people who have come and gone during our time here, the friends and classmates that have taken leave or transferred, the friends that we've had to mourn, and how much we miss them. I'm thinking about the impact that we've had on one another, how every single one of us has helped someone else to grow, even if it was in some small, unexpected way, because it would be impossible not to. I, for instance, will never forget the day that I walked into Val as a meek innocent first year, and saw a classmate take a fistful of lo mein noodles, stuff them in a napkin, and then shove that napkin in his pocket and leave. And I'm like 93% sure that this man doesn't remember that day at all, but I think about it all the time. So when that fateful day came, that I needed to steal a ton of roasted sweet potatoes from the dining hall in order to make a Friendsgiving pie, who do you think was the wind beneath my wings? As I boldly decided that my only option for smuggling them out of the dining hall was to fill my coat sleeves with sweet potatoes instead of arms and walk out of the dining hall like this. And finally, when I think about graduating from college, I'm thinking about how one of the things that makes me most excited about my post-Amherst life is the idea that I might be able to bring some of you into it with me. I'm thinking about seeing you in completely different cities, on completely different coasts, and inviting you over to my impeccably decorated apartment to make guacamole and mojitos, and in between bites, we'll talk about our new lives and our cute coworkers, and commiserate about the struggles of making friends outside of the bubble, and brag about finding an affordable apartment with not one, but 2 windows. And then maybe, towards the end of the night, when the guacamole starts turning brown, we'll reminisce about Amherst. And we'll gossip about who ended up getting married to who, and share a lot of, oh my gosh, I forgot about that, and spend at least an hour debating whether or not facilities actually used soy sauce to melt the ice in the winter. As a side note, if anybody can definitively confirm or deny that facilities uses soy sauce to melt the ice in the winter, please come and find me after this ceremony and help me put this to rest once and for all. I am begging you. So, class of 2019. I have no inspirational quotes or words of advice for you, just a whole lot of thoughts and gratitude. Because maybe way down the road, we're going to look back and realize that our years at Amherst were the happiest of our life. But I certainly hope not. That said, this has been a memorable and significant chapter, one that we've unknowingly written together, and I'm grateful to all of you for that, even if I've never seen your face before. Thank you.
That was quite extraordinary. I loved it. It was really a wonderful speech. Congratulations. And now it's my pleasure to announce the Phoebe and Zephaniah Swift Moore Teaching Awards. Every year, Amherst College honors 3 outstanding high school teachers who have made a difference in the lives of members of the graduating class. These teachers have challenged and inspired our students and help bring them where they are today, as they do for many, many, many more students where they teach. As I read your names, I'm going to ask the teachers and the student nominators to rise and be recognized. The recipients of the 2019 Phoebe and Zephaniah Swift Moore Teaching Awards are, first, Heather Anderson. Heather is here. Heather Anderson, a mathematics teacher at Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School in Palmer, Massachusetts, was nominated by Catherine Kat Sear. Kat, can you stand and wave if you haven't already? Is Kat here? Yeah. Okay. All of us thank you, Heather. Aaron Barkin. Aaron is a music teacher at Hamden High School in Hamden, Connecticut. He was nominated by Elena Berguino. Yeah? Okay, yes. Please stand and wave. Congratulations. By the time you get your diploma, I'll have it. John Horster is an English teacher from Oak Park and River Forest High School. John. The high school is in Oak Park, Illinois, and not only is he an AP English teacher, he is also the football coach. He was nominated by Angelique Barber. Angelique, where are you? Here. Thank goodness for teachers. And I'm proud to say that among our graduates are a number who intend to go into teaching. And I congratulate all of you for the choice. Thank you to our teachers, and thank you for coming. And now we award the Medal for Eminent Service, which has been awarded by the trustees of Amherst College since 1934. It's a way of recognizing exceptional service to the college. And this year's distinction goes to Paula K. Rausch. Paula? Paula, you are among our earliest women students and graduates. You embody the values and ideals that are dearest to Amherst College. As a visionary clinician and advocate for mental health, you have improved the lives of children, veterans, and families in a number of different ways and settings. As an engaged alumna for more than 4 decades, you have shared your time and genius with us in multiple capacities, including as wise counselor and trustee. We are honored that you sent your 2 children to Amherst College and grateful for all the ways that you have helped shape this institution. In honor of your contributions to the college, it is my pleasure to extend to you, on behalf of the Amherst College Board of Trustees, the Medal for Eminent Service. Please join me in congratulating Paul. And now it's my privilege to confer honorary degrees on behalf of the college. We recognize individuals who have brought honor to their professions and to public service, including some of our most distinguished alumni, and others who, with this conferral, become alumni of a very special kind. As we send new graduates to serve in the world today, we also welcome Amherst's honorary graduates who are exemplary in the worlds they have already served. David Corey. David, your intrepid and visionary quest to understand the physiology of human hearing has transformed our understanding of this fundamental sensory capacity. Your path-breaking discovery of the protein that lets us hear brings us closer to a future in which the auditory functioning of millions of people can be preserved or restored. We salute your passion, your talent for scientific research, and your dedication to improving the human experience. We're delighted and honored to award this honorary degree and to acknowledge that you are yourself a graduate of Amherst College. So this is your 2nd degree. Congratulations. David. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you, David, the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations again. For the degree of Doctor of Arts, Annie Leibovitz. Annie Leibovitz, your richly realized and distinctively bold vision has expanded the possibilities of expressive representation and opened new frontiers of compassion and insight. In your photographs, you have documented such an incredible array, so many facets of the human experience, enhancing our experience of ourselves and our world. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree Doctor of Arts, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Please join me in congratulating Annie Leibovitz. For the degree of Doctor of Divinity, Archbishop Thabo Magoba. Archbishop Thabo Magoba, we celebrate your extraordinary commitment to speaking out for human dignity and against intolerance and discrimination. We celebrate your eloquence, your compassion, the way your moral suasion awakens us to our own individual and collective responsibilities to conduct ourselves ethically and with particular care for the most vulnerable of our neighbors. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Divinity, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Thank you, Archbishop. For the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Charles C. Mann, a graduate of Amherst College in the class of '76. Charles Mann, your powerful, provocative, and incredibly insightful writing reframes over and over our understanding of fundamental aspects of the past, the future, and perhaps most of all, our present. Your incisive curiosity and commitment to analysis have, for countless readers, illuminated the importance of being engaged, skeptical, a questioner of received information. And for those of you who use Twitter, you should follow him. We are delighted to present you with your second Amherst degree. And by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Please join me in congratulating Charles Mann. For the degree of Doctor of Science, Nergis Mavovala, astrophysicist. Nergis, your pioneering contributions in the fields of gravitational wave astrophysics and quantum measurement science are transforming our understanding of the universe and ushering in a new era of discovery. You are extraordinary. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Please join me in congratulating honoris causa. For the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Cullen Murphy, a graduate of Amherst College in the class of 1974, writer and editor. Cullen Murphy, as a writer and editor, your capacious and generous-minded intelligence has illuminated a dazzling range of topics, issues, problems. And as trustee and chair of the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, your vision, leadership, and integrity have, during nearly 2 decades of remarkable service, vitally supported Amherst College in realizing the college's promise in the world. We are delighted to present you with your second Amherst degree and to congratulate you on your contributions. Please join me in congratulating Helen. I forgot mine. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Yeah. For the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Darren Walker. Darren Walker, with this honor, we celebrate your passionate dedication to addressing circumstances of social injustice and drivers of inequality in our nation and around the world. Your commitment to principled and transformative philanthropy are an inspiration to us all. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees at Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all of the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Join me in congratulating Darren Walker.
These are I think I know.
Thanks to the chorus. Beautiful music. Okay. 12 days ago, we lost a very old copper beech tree in my backyard, the backyard of the president's house. Lightning had struck it at some unknown point and burned out its core. From a distance, there was no evidence at all that it was hollow. Early on a Wednesday morning, the tree cutters arrived. I was in my study at home working on a commencement speech. I thought I could ignore the activity in the yard, but I was drawn to the window of my study and stood looking out at the tree's great height and expanse, its deep plum red leaves, and the trunk that still gave the appearance of solidity. I began to feel a sense of loss, the loss of what had felt like shelter. Once the work started, the noise made it impossible to focus on a speech. I couldn't block out the motor or the sound of saw cutting through wood, then the heavy thud of large branches hitting the ground after a long fall, and then the loud crunch and whir of the machine that began, branch by branch, to turn the tree to dust. I decided I should go to the office. When I got back from meetings late in the day, I went upstairs and looked out from the vantage point I had had in the morning. The men were still there. Of the tree, only about a 10-foot high stump remained, a pile of branches, and what felt to me like a void. I thought of a passage that intrigued me in David Haskell's book, Song of Trees, a book that one of our alumni sent me 2 years ago as a gift. Haskell writes, although tree trunks seemingly stand as detached individuals, their lives subvert this atomistic view. We're all, trees, humans, insects, birds, bacteria, pluralities. Life is embodied network, end of quote. The fact that it was a beech tree that came down in the yard made me think about the purple beech tree that Chris Collins' family planted in his memory behind Webster Hall, overlooking the baseball field that Chris loved and looking out onto these soft blue-green mountains that I love, that I remember from my childhood in the Appalachians of Virginia. I remember the day Mark and Beth, along with other members of the Collins family, came up to plant the beech. When it came off the truck, it looked terrible. It hardly seemed alive. It was folded in on itself and seeming to wither. But within minutes of its planting in the earth, the branches began to lift, and the tree seemed to raise its arms, almost as if on cue. On my way back to Converse, after spending time with the family and with Chris's teammates and friends, I was approached by 2 baseball players. They said they wanted to thank me for their new coach. I think one of them said something like this: he cares about the important things, not just winning. And I thought, in difficult times, if we clear out the debris and ignore the noise, we are reminded of what really matters. Haskell has said about trees that they are life's great connectors. To listen to trees, he writes, is to learn how to inhabit the relationships that give life its source, substance, and beauty. End of quote. To learn how trees communicate with each other and how they protect each other by emitting chemical, electrical, and other kinds of messages is also a great lesson and a humbling one for humans. we who so easily set ourselves apart. To listen to other people, even those who think otherwise, is also a teacher of what gives our lives their source and beauty, our interdependence and our belonging in embodied networks. When I was in graduate school, questions about the relationship between trees and politics came up in a seminar on German literature and in a seminar in women's studies. The German playwright Bertolt Brecht wrote a poem in the late 1930s called An die Nachfolger, or To Those Who Follow After Us. At the time, fascism was spreading across Europe. What times are these, he asks, when a conversation about trees could seem almost like a crime, because in that moment we remain silent about so much wrongdoing? Why speak of trees when there's so many urgent things to talk about in the country? In one of the first women's studies programs in the country, we were reading the work of Adrienne Rich. And in the 1970s, Rich wrote a poem that was published called What Kind of Times Are These? She would have known Brecht's poem and his question about what it means to talk about trees in dark times. She was writing at a time when the civil rights movement continued and also faced efforts to undermine it, when movements of the rights of women, gays and lesbians, Native peoples, and other marginalized groups had force, and opposition to the Vietnam War roiled campuses and the country as a whole. In 1970, shortly before Adrienne Rich wrote the poem, student protesters at Kent State University had been shot by members of the National Guard. That was when I was in college. The Cold War was still on. I want to read to you Adrienne Rich's poem, What Kind of Times Are These? There's a place between two stands of trees where the grass grows uphill and the old Revolutionary Road breaks off into shadows near a meeting house abandoned by the persecuted who disappeared into those shadows. I've walked there picking mushrooms at the edge of dread, but don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here, our country moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is, the dark mesh of the woods meeting the unmarked strip of light, ghost-ridden crossroads, leaf mold paradise. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, and make it disappear. And I won't tell you where it is, so why do I tell you anything? Because you still listen. Because in times like these, to have you listen at all, it is necessary to talk about trees. That's the end of the poem. In times like these, you still listen, but in order to get you to listen, it's necessary to talk about trees. It matters how truth is communicated, she says. But today, more than in the 1930s and the 1970s, it is necessary to talk about trees, not in order to obscure, deny, or ease us into truth. It is necessary because the forests they once made up are essential living networks, and the shelter they provide and represent is disappearing, even as the numbers of persecuted human beings and extinct species seem to grow all over the world. I am thinking about losses in these times, not only of people and trees and other species, but also of principles and rights and protections. Threats to principles and rights and protections destroy shelter for the embodied networks of which humans are one part. I recently visited the president's page on the Amherst College website, and I clicked for the first time in my life on the link to president's statements. Oh my goodness, the list is long and the messages are endless, some of them. They include emails on immigration policy, DACA status, environmental policy, Title IX, transgender rights, gay and lesbian rights, and a myriad of other issues, including Charlottesville. That ghost-ridden crossroads, to quote Rich, where, again I quote her, our country was revealed to be moving closer to its own truth and dread. The impact of policy changes and forms of wrongdoing are the reason for those statements. I wrote them because of these changes' impact on you. When I look at the list, I am struck, as you have been, at how much you have been through in 4 years, how much we have all been through. Perhaps all the difficult things you've experienced on your own and together account for the beauty in your senior speeches, all 3 of them, where each of you has focused on the things that matter most about your experience here, standing in for what is heartening about you, that you prize your faculty and what you have learned here, that you appreciate the staff who have been a big part of your lives. You have celebrated kindness, support of others, and the friendship of your classmates in your talks, and the conversation that is made possible when we let ourselves step outside of the way we've become accustomed to rushing through our lives and filling it with busyness. Your talks, all 3, have shown that at our best, we can combine talent with humility, strength with vulnerability, fear with courage and resilience, seriousness of purpose with humor. And to those who say you are snowflakes, I wish they knew and experienced the resilience and courage you show. You have shown these qualities and abilities in classrooms, in labs, on stage, in the community, during semesters abroad, on the courts, the fields, and in the pool. You have given brilliant performances in dance. I'm thinking about DeSac showcases. I'm still marveling at the symphony orchestra's concert that featured the work of Duke Ellington and Gershwin. I will long remember the extraordinary classical trio performance to which we were treated on Friday, and that included 2 of your classmates, Diane Lee on cello and Shannon Way on piano, along with a member of the class of 22 playing violin. You have shown exemplary discipline and teamwork in your athletic commitments and successes. You have done remarkable work in theater. I'm thinking of Brandon Medina's thesis project. You have done amazing work in art. The thesis exhibits in Fairweather Hall right now. Jonathan Jackson's photograph, Joanna Booth's woodcut prints, and Mika Obayashi's gorgeous paper installations. If there's still time to see them, I urge you to go. You are certainly all pluralities. I'm amazed at the number and range of things you do while you're doing your academic work. You've excelled in debate, gaming, public speaking, improv, radio, club sports, ultimate frisbee, starting at Amherst. You've found ways to combine an extraordinary amount of hard work with opportunities to enjoy yourselves in a variety of different ways, some better than others, and some questionable, to be honest. I want to highlight your courage and commitment to helping make Amherst a better place, whether through protest, contributions to governance committees, your own student government, the student newspaper, as resident counselors, peer advocates, your work to support marginalized groups in the resource centers. You have supported one another and many younger students through your help in creating the Center for International Student Engagement. You have created cross-center conversations between international students and students who frequent the Multicultural Resource Center. I'm thinking of Chris Lewis and Esteban Uceda, for example. Shoyoung Shin is one of the students who has made such significant contributions as a career service coordinator in the Center for Diversity and Student Leadership, and also as a peer career advisor in the Loeb Center. I apologize for not mentioning every one of your names. Let these names that I have mentioned stand in for what I know all of you have done. I also want to thank those of you who have worked so hard to remove the stigma associated with mental illness. The exhibits in Keefe conceived and put up by the group Active Minds, show your courageous openness. Adrienne Rich says, when we tell the truth, we create the possibility of more truth around us. You have helped create more truth, and you've done it in many different ways. I have heard you speak movingly about the impact of climate change on the places where you grew up, integrating science with personal experience and longing for the grown-ups to acknowledge the truth of what is already being lost. In your thesis project, some of which seem closer to PhD dissertations than undergraduate work, you have extended the possibilities of truth and change. Natalie Brown's thesis outlines the history of internment and deportation camps in France, starting in the late 30s and into the late 40s. It opens with a moving personal note about her grandmother, then a child of 4, who hid with her mother from Nazi pursuers in France. It is a beautiful piece of work that asks how a memorial might create an experience that would help us not simply remember the past, but think critically about how we can avoid repeating it. For her thesis, Deborah Newmark spent time in Cherry, Michigan, with undocumented families learning what it's like to face the perils of living undocumented now with all the uncertainties. Annika Ariel shows how illness and disability actually enrich and enable the imagination, focusing on the work of Dorothy and William Wordsworth. Huey Hewitt offers an analysis of how social and cultural norms can imprison us in our bodies, and how often trans people of color are incarcerated, where they are subjected to horrifying violence and abuse. At the 3-minute thesis competition, he ended with a call to understanding and change, quoting from the Bible, Hebrews 13:3. I cite it now. Remember them that are in bonds as bound with them that are ill-treated as being yourselves also in the body. These and many other projects show a commitment to acknowledging difficult truths and realities. Adrienne Rich writes about the nature of what we call truth. Truth, she says, is not simple. There is nothing simple or easy about it. There is no the truth. There is no a truth. Truth is an increasing complexity. I love that. Truth is an increasing complexity. This gives the lie to the either-or thinking that we hear so frequently today. She writes, the pattern of the carpet is a surface. When we look closely, we learn of the tiny multiple threads, unseen in the overall pattern, the knots on the underside of the carpet. Distracting ourselves from hard truths can be a necessary part of dealing with them at times, but denying and refuting truths and realities are not solid defenses, but ultimately limits to the possibilities that exist between us, as Adrienne Rich writes. They harden us to the possibilities of life among us. Rich continues, this is why the effort to speak honestly is so important. Lies are usually attempts to make everything simpler for the liar, simpler than it really is or ought to be. Complexity, interdependence, continual change. Please continue to think far beyond the either-or, the binary oppositions that we're being handed today. Continue to be open to the complexity of truth and the possibilities of life among us. Life, said Haskell, is embodied network, and he also adds that living networks adapt best and most successfully, not by virtue of being places of omnibenevolent oneness. Instead, I quote, they are where ecological and evolutionary tensions between cooperation and conflict are negotiated. Tension and conflict are a crucial part of positively adaptive changes to networks and communities. They work when we're willing to take risks in truth-telling and when our interlocutors or listeners are as forgiving as possible of our mistakes. We need a politics understood as an effort to use disagreement in search of a larger good, a good that acknowledges the life we share with trees. Having now told so many people about the felling of the tree in my yard, my friends, some of whom have offered me books, The Hidden Life of Trees, more books about trees, thank you. Having had so many people listen to my sadness about the felling of the tree has helped me see the void in my backyard increasingly as a clearing. Our perspectives change by virtue of our interactions with others and with the things of this world. They change with our awareness of our interconnectedness. I know that the essential meanings of your time at Amherst will be revealed to you only over time. For now, I congratulate you, wish you all the best, and leave you with a short quote from Rich again, and then the poem of salute to you that I read every year. From Rich, truthfulness anywhere means a heightened complexity. The politics worth having, the relationships worth having, demand that we delve deeply. End of quote. All of you have what you need to do well, to create more truth, better politics, and relationships worth having. You have what you need. Go out and plant some trees. And remember that they don't stand alone, and neither do you. Salute. May happiness pursue you, catch you often, and should it lose you, be waiting ahead, making a clearing for you. A.R. Emmons. Thank you very much.
Will the candidates for the degree Bachelor of Arts please come forward? Natalie Brooke Adair. Princess Adedoyan. Deandra Grace Baffer Oduche. Sophia Isaacs. Oluwafakayayo Ajayi. Sophia Lishon Acklog. Storm Alexander. Samuel Chidera Izechuku Amaka. Irish Amundsen. Rachel Eng. Caitlin Rose Arendt. Lakeisha Maciel Arias de los Santos. Annika Ariel. Sion Bakaptu Arwaga. Julia Asen. Amina Gloriana Austin. Carl Joseph Bachman IV. Ashwin Balaji. Isabel Luna Balsazak. Mahalia Marie Banton. Robert Norman Barish. Anjanique Barber. Amari L. Barrett. Jack Barrett. Onyx Alexander Bathurst Williams. Kelly Marilyn Bauman. Kira Becker. Hillary Bediaco. Caleb Begna. Elisa Bello. Allison Elaine Bennett. Isabella Berkeley. Eve Berkovich, in absentia. Robert Beluti. Kayla Berry. Zachary James Bissett. Daniel Felipe Benencourt Echeverry. Mia Daly Bongiorno. Ton Boonmark. Joanna Christine Booth. Natalie Saltoon Braun. Stanley Ryan Brenner. David Michael Brinkley. Louis Ramses Briones. Cornell William Brooks II. Spencer Charles Brooks. In absentia, Cosmo Jacob Rossi. Davis Brown. Zake Zetcher Brown. Simone Ashley Nicole Brown. Zachary Brown. Mara Lucy Brubaker. Sarah Jeannie Buck. Amal Salam Fawandu Buford. Helena Burgueño. Jack Allen Burleson. Kimberly Moyen Burnett. Catherine Burns. Brian Burrows. Madeline Justine Bustos. Lindsay Francis Call. John Callahan. Joshua Duncan Campbell. Monica Cardenas. Molly Lowe Carlton. Baya Casano. Tatiana Castillo Ramos. Michael Dongmin Cha. Alexander Chafers. Esperanza Cheras. Eden Frederica Charles. Adrian Chen. Joshua Chen. Catherine Chen. Kelsey Chen. Adil Chahabra. Peter Jeho Cho. Francis Choi. Grace Jihae Choi. Ho Yan Choi. Mujin Choi. Edwin Chun. Daniel Dongin Chung. Gregory Ezra Clark. Kendall Cody. Annie Phillips Cohen. Rachel Olivia Cohen. William Tucker Cohen. Alexandra Maria Conza. James Corbett. Rebecca Ann Correa. Carlos A. Cosme Jr. Emma Tatum Crow. Amalia Ann Dimendonde Cruz. Edwin Cruz Garcia. Catherine Sear. Anna Dalton. Julia Natalie Dunphy Danielle. Erica Rose DeAngelis. John Hunter DeLaverson. Andrew DeNoble. Ursula DeBoard. Mahesh Dulipola. Tasia Jasmine Diaz Fonseca. Sophie Durr. Maxime Kevin Renee Ghislaine Douarin. Livia Dominic. Kevin James Dooley. Nayare Dusti, in absentia. Gabrielle Marie Doran. Michael Keller Dow. Carly Jean Drost. Michael Renee Durrell. Miriam Elizabeth Eichhoff. Alexander R. Einashon. Lauren Eisner. Nadim Faisal Elcock. Kai Isaac Ellers. Noah Stephen Elliott. Athena Christine Erickson. Vernon Steve Espinoza Valenzuela. Simon Essek Aberg. Jonah Evans. Obi Daniel Ezeogo. Nicholas Faturas. Ian Fayersey. Kevin Anthony Feely Jr. Nicholas Joseph Felly. Daniel Jordan Ferentz. Andrew Ferrero. John Festa. Catherine Finnerty. Hannah Elizabeth Firestone. Jack Fitzgerald. Sean Fitzgerald. Michaela Burke Fitzpatrick. Emily Flaherty. James Stephen Flatto. Andrew William Ford, in absentia. John Ford. Renee Foster. Jane Marie Fraley. Gabrielle Francois. Lexi Freeman. Patrick Frenette. Julia Alexia Gayeski Nemes. Jasmine Gamboa. Chris Ganatra. Sean Randy Garcia. Benjamin Rand Garfinkel. Andrew Joseph Gerlach. Sharuz Milan Gayami. Jonah Gilbert. Ariella Kala Goldberg. Gabrielle Gonzalez, in absentia. Cindy Gong. Michaela Gordon Wexler. John Andrew Griffiths. Dylan Lee Groff. Juan Pablo Greco. Wesley Guimarães. Jae Hyun Ha. Caitlin Elizabeth Hasse. Elliot James Hadwin, in absentia. Jonathan Heidenberg. Chase Henley. Haley Alexis Henriksen. Pauline Herbert Whiting. Julia Faye Harrion Cruz. Huey Hewitt. Jack Hickey, in absentia. Simone Elena Hinson. Angelica Genya Hirsch. Nico Hogan. Emma Jane Hollenberg. Augusta Bennett Hollers. Matthew Tyler Holliday. Catherine Michelle Hom. Hayes Leslie Honey. Labani Hawk. Jasmine Rose Horan. Fangling Hu. Isabel Hannon Hudson. Lily Maria Hunter. Jocelyn Hunyadi. Dominique Rose Iacarino. Esther Arabella Isaac. Jonathan Jackson. Philippe Johansson. Stephen Philip Johnson. Rebecca Jordan. Yanis Kolianis. Ermias Cabeda. William Kelsch. Oliver Kendall. Namita Kadanchi. Harith Hall Adja. Angie Kim. Brittany Hope Kim. Eric Kim. Jenny Kim. Julie Min-kyung Kim. Kelly Kim. Leah Jongwon Kim. Yejin Ko. Jeffrey Kong. Elijah Kwame. Bridget Maria Kwong. Elizabeth Helen Lacey. Mylin Lee. Allison Lee. Diane Haeyun Lee. Uni Lee. Justin Lee. Mariana Patricia Liuk. Claire Leonard. Alexandra Levinson. Jesse M. Leviton. Christopher Washington Lewis. Isaiah Lewis. Bonnie Lynn. Eric Lynn. Catherine Lindsay. Elianio Lironzo Castro. Amber Cheon Liu. Patrick Liu. Alex Liu. Sandra Maya Lopez. Genevieve Danielle Lucas Narcisse. Caroline Grace McElvray. Morgan Elizabeth Mashili. Seamus McNeil. Cassidy Wayne Marr. Brogan Mann, in absentia. John Martin Maleg. Stephen Mallory II. Nathaniel Edward Benjamin Manuel. Elena Marcotte. Hyorin Martina Hood. Jacob Griffin May. Brantley Tucker Mayers. Michael Vincent McCall. Emma Nicole McCarthy. Ian Markham McClarity. Kaylin McCone. Jamie Mason McNamara. Maeve Summer McNamara. Jesse McVeigh. Derek Brandon Medina. Margaret Medina Pena. Tucker John Mijer. Catherine Maria Mendoza. David Edgar Markle. Sabrianan Micha. John Michael. Brian Miller. Divine Asia Miller. Ian Lowry Miller. Cameron Ivory Milner. Kelly Elizabeth Missette. Lily Joy Mummins. Nicholas Tillman Morales. Mantero Valentino Moreno Cheek. Waldemar Moretti. Annie Jenna Murphy. Kieran Nicole Naftel. Taro Nakagawa. Katiana Rose Nardone. Nicholas Nardone. Tashina Shashi Naraidu, in absentia. Gertrude Wangari Ndungu. Robert Thomas Needham Jr. Lucas Newman Johnson. Deborah Lynn Newmark. Luke Williams Wen. Luke Reese Nichols. Denise Noriega. Jack Norton, in absentia. Oheneba Kofi Enti Jr. Mika Obayashi. Ludia Ock. Timothy Kwesi Mensa Odro Ofe Adon. Min Young O. Rogelio Oliva. Noah James Orlando. Grace Orr. Michael Aaron Owens. Yamur Idil Ademir. Jacqueline Palermo. Jada Kai Palmer. Caitlin Elizabeth Pantera. Zoe Nicole Pappas. Ashley J. Park. Austin John Gook Park, in absentia. Emily Yeun Park. Andres Pascual Leone. Catherine Pedersen. Theo R. Pyrels. Taylor Ann Pelletier. Paula Peña Tauber. Arthur Perro. Kyle Stephen Petrillo, in absentia. Julia Katerina Fotiker. Jonathan David Petersey. Julia Pike. Molly Elizabeth Pines. Kali Rebecca Plout. Margreta Polar. Ashton Prophet. Nathaniel Quigley. Christopher David Quinones. Marissa Julia Fuzihara Radensky. Cameron Randolph Ragland. Marielle Abreu Rayford. John Rack. Diego Ramos Meyer. Allison Randy Kofi. Advait Sai Krishna Rao Sharma. Patrick Gilmore Rushelbach. Jeannie Raven. Kennedy Marie Reed. Edward Rigo. Sean Daniel Reed. Lauren Taylor Reppert. Clark Ricciardelli. Heather Eileen Reedy. Kristen Elizabeth Riley. Colin Rizzolo. Fabian Rivera Reyes. Gabby Rowe. Veronica Mary Racco. Maxwell Roach. Silvana Romero. Megan Root. Gabrielle Ilana Rose. Catherine Rosenberg. Ethan Jeremy Rosenthal. William Douglas Rotella. Brendan Routh, in absentia. Jordan Alexander Rubenstein. Victoria Seraphine Ruvkan. Samantha Salustri. Matthew Jordan Santos. Che Pablo Saunders Schultz. Catherine Mackenzie Savage. Maria Scala. Christina Scartelli. Laura Catherine Schmedline. Joseph Schneider. Margaret Elizabeth Schaller. Mark Joseph Schoen. In absentia, Jacob Schultz. Robert George Schwartz III. Rachel Miranda Seifert. Charlie Seltzer. Alize Schweb Satie. Jason Corey Cito. Logan Seymour. Aiden Neguse Sium. Tiffany Tianying Shao. David Shapiro. Samantha Faye Sharp. Maggie Shea. Megan Esposito Shea. Lucas Shiner. Kevin Shen. Michael Shee. David Shin. Shou Young Shin. Young Kwang Shin. Theodora Rose Shirley. Robert M. Sjogren. Trenton Shore, in absentia. Jacob Alexander Stolman. Rebecca Bryn Silva. Cristobal Silva San Martin. Jacob David Silverman. Caitlin Rachel Simon. Mark Simonitis. Priya Devi Sinha. Victor Sinopoli. Anastasia Richardovna Slater. Aisha Amia Smith. Charles Smith. Catherine Irene Smith. Alyssa Snyder. Christian Sogard. Brett Sokol. Sabrina Solo. Andrew Thompson Summer. Juno Sun. Dorate Song. Sangmin Son. Emery Claire Sorvino. Sylvia Marie Sotolongo. Samuel Stollop. Cole Steiger. Mackenzie Ann Steen. Kyla Angela Paguyo Stamen. Cole Rockwell Stevens. Alexandra Sierra Perez Stern. Sebastian Stiles Saraki. Angelica Jacidrith Sullivan. Megan Irene Sullivan. Justin Sun. Ruby Mbekup Nana Taman. Andy Tang. Wilson Reeve Marriott Taylor. Allison Reed Tennant. Isabel Tessier. Alexandra Catherine Puyana Thial. Ellie Tew. Harry Stadler Thompson. Lauren Thompson. Shannon Adele Tierney. Isabella Faith Torres. Camelia Amelia Trapness. James Louis Tripaldi. Jamie Rue Tucker Foltz. Julia Turner. Lindsay Noel Turner. Amos Two-Way. Nathaniel James Tyrell. John Patrick Terrell. Esteban Uceda Arias Stella. Lorena Yukonwa. Jeremy Van. In absentia. John Vasilio. Andrew Versteeg. Juan Villaseñor. Jane R. Fogelzang. Sarah Alice Wagner. Matthew Walsh. Leela Walter. Kevin Wang. Shannon Way. Avery Weiss. Kate Weiss. Ijen Wen. Gilbert Wormeling. Natalie Edna Wigger. Akeem Kamani Williams. Alexandra Bandareva Williams. Sarah Evelyn Wishloff. Evan Davis Wolf, in absentia. John Arthur Wolf, in absentia. Kira Evelyn Wortley. Amelia Wrigley. Xiaoyi Shin. Oriana Shu. Yoon Yamanaka. Andrew Michael Yaman. Aaron Chung Young. Kelly Yang. Caroline Yao. Ella Yarmo Gray. Elorm Yabuja. Hedim Yoon. Hikari Yoshida. Hedim Yoon. Evan Butler Young. Gabriel Young. Yurenli Liu Yuan. Erica Zambrano Alvarez. William Zaubler. Brian Zachary Zayatz. In absentia, Chensi Zhong. In absentia, Eric Jiawei Zhang. Eric Zhou. Robert Zielinski. Will the candidates for the degree Bachelor of Arts please rise? President Martin, on behalf of the faculty of Amherst College, it is my pleasure, honor, and privilege to certify that all candidates upon whom the faculty has voted to confer degrees have fulfilled all the requirements for the Bachelor of Arts degree.
Thank you, Dean Epstein. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I hereby confer upon every one of you the degree Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations to all of you. Yeah, yay, yes. We invite the audience to join in the singing of the hymn to Amherst. You'll find lyrics in the program, and after the singing, members of the audience are requested to remain in place while trustees, faculty, invited guests, and the graduating class leave the quadrangle. Don't forget the buffet luncheon on the quad, Valentine quad. The chorus.
In the light of Amherst skies, her beauty lives forever, still as shining as the ties that bind our lives together. In the temple of these hills, beauty
Will the sheriff please bring these proceedings to a close?
The 198th commencement of Amherst College is hereby adjourned. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.